So, I don't know if our systems are syncing up or what, because this is the second time in like a month you and I have both worn like Hulk shirts at the same time.
Yeah.
Either that or we both just have an abundance of Hulk shirts.
I have, let's see, I've got this one, and then this is the John Romita Sr. shirt, and then I've got a Jack Kirby Hulk shirt. That's one of those shirts where I'm like, is today the good enough day to wear it?
Right. That's
Nah.
That's the special shirt.
I'm like,
that's when you wear that shirt when you're interviewing people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jack Kirby Hulk shirt, it was quite a find. Yeah, I've not seen another one since. Specifically, it's an illustration that Jack Kirby did of the Hulk that I absolutely love. Somebody put it on a T-shirt, sold them, and apparently they were done because I've not seen it ever since online or anywhere. So I'm like, when I wear it, it's a thing. So, but I think that's the only 2 Hulk shirts I have.
I've got 3 or 4. My Hulk basketball jersey is probably my favorite.
I've seen a lot. I've looked and scoured the internet, and I don't like most of them that are out there.
Yeah.
One, I just like classic Hulk illustrations much better than any given current or anything done since the 90s. So, and Jack Kirby's Hulk and Romita Sr.'s Hulk are 2 of my utmost favorites. Well,
it's because you're a man of quality and taste.
I would like to put myself over as that. It's inconsistent, I feel, but
I'll say it. I'll say it for you. You don't have to. Let me do. It's Christmas. This is my gift to you.
I just like all the old. I just like all the old vintage illustrations with any given character, but it also because it harkens back to when it was more subversive. Yeah. And now I don't like wearing the mainstream stuff today. I just have more affection for the old stuff when I was a kid reading it, and it was, it wasn't on the TV.
Well, so I don't wear a lot of, I don't have the opportunity, I should say, to wear a lot of like comic shirts anymore. Because like usually if I'm out of the house, it's like a work or a school function. Or I've got something later on that I'm going to have to wear a shirt for. So it's diminished my ability to wear nerd shirts. Yeah. So when I come here to do this with you guys, if I don't have anything going on later, I'll wear one. But I don't, kind of the same thing. I don't want to pick up my nerd t-shirt from Walmart or Target or, Five Below. Actually, I've got one from Five Below that was pretty cool, so I'll cut them some slack. But it is, that is one thing I miss about cons is going and seeing shirts that you won't see anywhere else. Yeah. That is, I do miss that. I'm looking forward to breaking back into that because it's a thing. I like, we like these shirts, we like these characters, but I also don't want the same thing that everybody else is wearing. Yeah. And I want something it won't be unique, obviously, because these things are some type of mass-produced to some capacity.
Well, of course.
But, it's not one. You're not seeing one in every 10 people wear it.
No, it's not the Affliction shirt that everybody is wearing. Or
Mine
whatever.
is, the one I have on is like the Marvel corner box. I can't tell who it's mimic after. I'm not sure. It's definitely an older version. It's supposed to be the Hulk, or it's supposed to be the Kirby version of the Hulk, but I don't think it actually is. So it almost looks like maybe Trimp did the outline, but I'm not 1,000% sure. Who can say? Who can say? Yeah. But it's pretty cool. So I love that we both.
One more note on that. What's funny is how often my nerd shirts are complimented. Yeah. I wore my Conan the Barbarian shirt last week. Got complimented on the restaurant at the restaurant when we went and ate. I wore. I was wearing a nerd shirt when I went to Oklahoma last week. Walked in, checking into the hotel. Some little old lady's like, "Oh, I like that shirt."
They were just glad that it wasn't Goku.
They were refreshing. Yeah. So yeah, it's funny. It's funny how that works.
Well, like I said, you're a man of quality and taste. And you know who else are people of quality and taste?
Our audience?
Our audience, the folks who tune in every week to listen to this, the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. And this is episode 206. We're continuing on. We are almost at the 4-year mark. It's kind of exciting. Really exciting, actually. Really, really exciting. Yeah. As usual, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And we are once again Craigless, and that's okay. Again, Craig is he's dealing with some family stuff. He's got a member of his family, his close family, who's not doing too well. So we want to send a lot of love and hope and comfort out to them as both a brother for us and as just a general friend. Yeah. We on the show, we're kind of tight knit. We all talk outside of the show. We know each other's families. We're brethren, so to speak. And so when one of us hurts, all of us hurts. And we hope he knows that we're thinking about him and his whole family. So he will return at some point. So it may not be anytime soon. I think he's going to take a couple of shows off because he's got to be traveling on the weekends. Yeah. So, which is unfortunate because we're going to miss his voice, but completely understandable.
Of course.
So, how's your week been, man? How's everything going?
It's going well. Just busy as usual. I didn't pick up my comics until Friday afternoon, and had a busy Friday, and so I had to squeeze some reading in whenever it's like, oh, I got some downtime and run. And sometimes I wasn't even reading a whole comic at once. It's like, well, I got 3 pages in. I'll set this down and come back.
Bags and boards make a great bookmark.
Yeah,
that's a lesson we've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna one up you on that. I still have not picked up my comics from last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do it this afternoon. Because I'm taking the day off from school stuff, and so I'm gonna go eat. Hopefully with you if you have time after work, and then swing back by the shop and pick my stuff up. I'm in the midst of law school finals. I know I sound like a broken record. It is hell. I hate this, and I am so ready to be done. I have my last one on the 9th, and I can wash my hands of this semester. I'm exhausted. Had one final last night on a Saturday. Took me from 2 to 6 to do it. So 4 hours and one giant brain dump on a Saturday. It's not okay. I don't know who said they could do finals on Saturdays, but that person was wrong.
Yeah,
and we should remedy that as a society because it's a social wrong. It's demoralizing to the very very fabric of our being.
Well, when you're in school, the weekends have so very little meaning.
Yeah,
because it's like
whatsoever.
Here comes the weekend. You've got to work on the weekend. Yeah. Work very hard mentally. So yeah, I remember getting out of school. Of course, I know you went to. You got your undergraduate, but all of a sudden having ownership of your weekends was quite the experience.
And for me, for like somebody who doesn't do summer classes, or I've only done a few summer classes, it is so just every summer when that clicks in, it's just like I've got to get up at 6:30 or 7 a.m. to start studying. No, wait, I don't.
Yeah.
Free time. What is this?
Yeah. But I don't know about you, but I have nightmares still about waking up and forgetting to study for a test. Still happens.
1,000%. Like, I mean, living with that anxiety currently, but it's just like, it's what do I don't know? And I am compulsive, so I'm the type of person, like, I literally have spent, up until the final last night, I spent 3 days, like 72 hours. By 8 o'clock, I was studying, and I didn't stop till 9 or 10 o'clock that night. Woke up the next morning, and taking like a lunch break and stuff in the midst of that, and doing things that I have to do. But fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure which one it is, my husband is traveling a lot this month. So Roger and his bestie both turned 30 in the month of December.
Oh, my God.
And so they went down to New Orleans. They left on Thursday. They should get back this afternoon.
Just turned 30. That's why I responded that way. Yep. I said, y'all are...
I scooped up a youngin. So I'm only 4 years older than him though. So it's but yeah, they went down to New Orleans and had a great time by all accounts. He did not take his diet with him. They have been eating well.
You can't do that. No. Not in New Orleans. Nah.
And then
that'd be weird.
This next week, Wednesday, he is taking his 87-year-old grandmother back to her old stomping grounds in Mississippi to go visit some family she hasn't seen in a while. Go visit her daughters, her sister.
What part of Mississippi?
That. So it's around Hattiesburg.
Okay.
But she is originally from a little bitty town. It is the same town that Everett, who is the really flamboyant character on Queer as Folk, it's the same town that he is from. Hazelhurst. That's what it's. Hazelhurst, Mississippi.
Interesting.
And so, like, we always joke because, of course, that's where Roger hails from. He's our own Emmett from Queer as Folk. So. So they're gonna do that for a few days, and I'm gonna have I'm single dog dadding it, so it's not fun.
Yeah,
but lots of study time.
Yeah.
So, well, in the midst of that, I was able to catch up on like 3 weeks ago comics. And so did you get to? I think you've read a few things that are more current. What you been up to?
So from this week's releases, I read amongst them. Number one on my short stack is Maniac of New York, The Bronx is Burning. So this is the second arc in this Maniac series. This is an Aftershock book from Elliot Kalan and Andre Muti.
Mm-hmm.
The Maniac has moved on into the Bronx. So this is a different stomping ground for him, one that he had never been before, and everybody thought they were safe from him. Nay, nay, says the Maniac as he enters the Bronx.
That's the name of this title.
Yeah.
That's the Nay, nay, said the Maniac.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I read from Marvel, Daredevil number 36. This wraps up the Zdarsky run, of which is called Lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
This is part 6 in that arc. Great wrap up. finishes off interestingly in that it's leading to the next Zdarsky run.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought Zdarsky was done with Daredevil after this.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. You said it wrapped up the last Zdarsky arc, and I was like, wait, is this just the end of the arc, or is he done with the title?
Yeah, this is done. Well, that's what it is, because I thought he was finished with this arc. I don't know. I guess I dreamed that I read that somewhere. But anyway, so it's, I'm not, no spoilers, but a very interesting last page in the epilogue of this issue, because it's going to lead into the next run, which I'm really looking forward to. Predominantly, apparently, is going to bring back the antagonistic relationship between Kingpin and Daredevil.
Cool.
Sucker for that. Yeah, always up for that, to watch those two go at each other.
That's a classic rivalry.
Yeah, and it's great. It's like Spider-Man and Doc Ock to me. I've yet to get sick of that.
Always going to enjoy seeing it. So I was in one of the Marvel books I was reading this week. I actually saw an ad. I think that they're doing some type of I don't know if it's going to be an event or a crossover thing that Zdarsky and I think Chichetto's on it too, but they're heading up. That's going to be like a crossover thing spinning out of this. So so he's definitely not done with the character.
The creative team on this specific issue is Zdarsky as a writer and Manuel Garcia as a penciler, and there's 3 inkers. There's 3 inkers on this: Cam Smith, Scott Hanna, and Victor Nava. The art on this is crazy good.
Yeah,
I love Marco Cicchetto.
Yeah,
Marco Cicchetto. I love his stuff. But man, they did not take a back seat. I mean, this is great looking stuff.
Nice.
I really like the art, the pencil, the penciling and the inking on this one. And then number 3 on my short stack. Once again, I'm talking about an X book. This is X-Men number 5. The creative team on this one is Jerry Duggan, and as I try to get to the credits page here, Javier Pena and Z Carlos are listed as the artists. And man, I freaking love the artwork in this book.
Pena's been like leveling up.
Well, and I want to make sure and point out the artwork in that the inking is putting this penciling over the top. Man, the inking is really, really putting this over the top. There is an amazing page once you get to the final couple of issues where Cyclops is talking to Ben Ulrich. And this page where you're looking at the reflection of Ben in Cyclops' visor, that is next level. That is next level. That kind of stuff, little things like that. Great stuff. So I can't recommend this enough. And the story's great. There's really great moment in this where Polaris is using a unconscious X-23 as basically a puppet, and she's killing people. She's killing Reavers with an unconscious X-23 until she wakes up. And there's a really nice moment in this. Are you reading this specific run? Okay, I'm gonna go in. I gotta spoil this.
Go ahead. It's fine.
Where, Polaris is telling the Reavers, she's like, you're organic metal. You think you're invulnerable to me, but I can control the iron in your blood and the fillings in your teeth. And then she goes, to me, my fillings. And all the fillings in the Reaver's teeth jerk out. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah. To me, my fillings.
That's a one-liner that's a classic one-liner.
Oh, yeah.
It's got to be. Yeah. That's amazing. So, dude, and it's one of those situations, back to the art, it's, the phrase, a rising tide lifts all ships. I really feel like Pepe Larraz stepping into the X world. Yeah. He has inspired and then just pushed a ton of other artists, because we're now seeing a lot of artists produce, like specifically in X-Men, that we've seen for a long time, but all of their games have been upped all of a sudden, like in the last 6 months. And I don't know if it's maybe Corona with everybody staying at home over the last couple of years, and that maybe that had something to do with it, or what. But it's like Pepe Larraz hit the scene and just was a beast, and then everybody else got better because of it.
Well, it really feels like Marvel has made a conscious effort to put all their most dependable writers and artists on the X titles.
Yeah. Because they in other places. So, I mean, little shade. So speaking of shade, I'm going to start off with some. Our short stacks, these aren't necessarily books that we loved or hated. We're just kind of things we read. Keeping up with, right? So, and then obviously spoiler warnings. So I'm a huge fan of Rodney Barnes, right? Like, I love his work. If you've read Philadelphia, I love his new book that he's doing, the monster stories. really excited now that he's on a James Bond book. He is writing James Bond's Hemeros for Dynamite. Read issue 2 this week. Loved the first issue. I think it's great. The art is right in there with what you can expect for Dynamite. The story's great. So, huge fan of Rodney Barnes. Now, in this book, the artwork is being accomplished by Antonio Fuso with colors by Adriano Augusto. I have a bone to pick with them. And I'll get there here shortly.
Yes.
Right. So, but the main juxtaposition of this particular issue is Bond is like trying to watch over this. We'll call her a mark that he's trying to save. Assassins come after her. He's got to like exfil her out, get her somewhere safe as part of this ongoing thing for Hemeros, right? Like that's all you need to know for this issue. There's one scene in this book where the assassin comes in and is rocking like an awesome Tom Selleck mustache, just badass. Bond punches the shit out of him, no mustache, and then like 3 panels later, mustache. So either the colorist messed up, or the artist forgot to put the notes there, or James Bond just hit this fool so hard, his mustache took a timeout, which is the way I choose to believe. Have you ever hit a motherfucker so hard their mustache receded? It went on retreat, bro. A little white flag. But all in all, fun story. It's a good Bond story. Like I said, I love Rodney Barnes. This is something different in comics, and I've seen him before. Interesting, but it's Dynamite artwork. So, like, no shade to Dynamite artists. There's just a level there, right? Like, there's an expectation that you're not getting super insane quality. It's serviceable. It's what Dynamite artists are. Second on my short stack over at the House of Ideas, jumping over to Marvel. A book that we actually, I only picked it up because I thought we might do it for a roundtable book, but another book presented a better opportunity for discussion, so we chose it. But I picked up Venom #1, and now this is by our good friend. I'm saying good friend because I want to be. I'm manifesting that in the world. I want him to call me on weekends.
Put that energy out there.
Both of them actually. It's written by Al Ewing and Ram V, both of which I'm a huge fan of. Ram V. If you had to ask me who who the best like newcomer to comics was this year, it'd be Ram V. That dude's killing it, and he's not really a newcomer, but I mean he's had his comeuppance this year. Penciler by some dude named Brian Hitch.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. Must be a novice kind of person. Alex Sinclair did the colors. Andrew Curie inked Brian Hitch, and Clayton Cowles did the letters. Not a Venom fan, and I don't say that in the sense of like I'm not going to talk shit about him. He's a character, like he's cool. Just never been a long time reader of that character. It's cool things about him. I don't mind when he shows up in other books, but I picked this up because Al Ewing was picking up where Donny Cates left off, and it really felt like he did a good job with that. Venom is Eddie Brock is now has the ability to teleport his psyche, because now the Venoms are like a species thing, like the symbiotes are a thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of symbiotes.
He's back to being kind of this Space Knight thing where he can jump into these other symbiotes and he kind of feels them. They're able to communicate telepathically throughout the universe. Kind of a cool deal. I mean, it's not my cup of tea, but it's an interesting development. He jumps over in the spaceship that's being attacked by like Skrulls and stuff. The son's having a hard time, because his son's back in his life. Dylan is just doing his own thing, trying to protect each other. But actually, Dylan breaks a rule that his daddy told him never to break, and you can go pick up that issue to find out what it is. I picked up the Peach Momoko variant of this. Fun stuff. I really love her covers more and more the more I see them. And then last but not least, a DC book that I was really excited about and treated me really, really well is Wonder Woman Evolution #1. This is by Stephanie Phillips with pencils by Mike Hawthorne. Inks by Adriano Di Benedetto with Jordi Belair on the colors. Fun Wonder Woman story. Yeah. It's great to see Stephanie Phillips' voice on this. It really comes through. She handles Wonder Woman very well. Big fan of Hawthorne's art. Yeah. Actually picked up a few issues of Daredevil just because he was on it. I've got some of his independent stuff. I think it's great. I don't know that Benedetto really did justice to his pencils. There were some moments in here that I was just like, that's too heavy of a line or something like that. Just a choice, just for for my eye, for whatever. But there were other pages where I really thought that the inker was really channeling like some Romita or Romita Jr., I should say, or even a little bit of Frank Miller with the way that he drew Wonder Woman, which was kind of cool. That was an interesting nod. So the book starts off with this. Kind of a winged enemy of Diana, holding some kids hostage because she wants to prove a point. She's got this nanotech running through her, and Diana has to stop her. But there's this really great conversation with Diana and Superman at the end of the book on top of a mountain that is poetic as fuck, and I thoroughly enjoyed that moment. So fun stuff.
Nice.
Great little short stack to pick up and read. Treated me well. So, all right. Well, one of the things that we do, and that we're always going to do, because it's kind of our thing, is that we co-choose a book to read. That usually the three of us get together and we decide, hey, we're going to pick out this story and we're going to each read it independently. We're really not going to talk about it beforehand. Sometimes if it's just a really, really epic book, or if it's just a really bad book, we'll mention to each other off air, so to speak, what we're going to do. But we try not to do that for the most part. I feel like we try to keep it fresh. This week we decided to read a book. It's something that I'd seen coming out, and I think one of us might have recommended it. But it's by a well-known writer, by a well-known artist, and we were like, okay, this is worth picking up. So we grabbed King of Spies, #1, written by Mark Millar, with art by Matteo Scalera, the great Matteo Scalera. It's one of those image books that Millar is doing in conjunction with his deal with Netflix. Really, I think it's an IP, an idea farm. It's easy for me to say that because that's generally where Millar sits in my head. So it's almost not fair when I start there. Like, that's my starting point for these things. So I struggle sometimes with Millar stories, especially now, because that's the way I feel like it's happening. But I really do put I don't know about you. I have to put effort into like getting back to kind of a neutral position and just judging the story on its own merits.
Yeah.
So I do. I make a valid attempt to do that, but it is difficult sometimes, because and I'll get into it later. Actually, you know what? Like I said, King of Spies #1. How did this treat you? How did you feel about it?
Meh.
Yeah. Kind of where I was at with it.
Yeah.
That's the 30,000 foot view. Didn't hate it. Wasn't in love with it.
Right. Yep.
I'll go ahead and say right now I'm probably not picking up the second issue.
I'll second that.
It in many ways felt like a Bond story that I would, it had those elements there. So I was kind of intrigued, but it just didn't really tap into that vein for me. With Millar, especially in the more recent things of Millar that I've read, I constantly feel like he's pulling plot points out of a hat to make a story. Like, I feel like he wrote down just a bunch of different plot points.
A bunch?
Well, across the spectrum of his story. Like, he's come up with things that could happen and then crumbled them up and then put them in a hat. And when he runs out of, when he hits a point in his story, he picks another one out. Like, oh, introduce another kid that we didn't know about. Okay, cool. We'll call this problem. And that's kind of
But he puts them back in the hat.
Yeah, he definitely recycles them.
To go back to the hat.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I felt about this book. But across the board, #1, I can't say it's a bad book because of Matteo Scalera's art. The art was gorgeous on this. If you've seen Matteo's work before, you kind of know what he's doing and what he's getting into. So, but what is this story, you might be asking? Well, I'm going to tell you a story about the most interesting guy in the world. This is the kind of guy that has commercials and sits in a bar and he drinks good tequila and he's got an awesome beard and he's got a history of being a spy, right? Like, it's literally that character from that commercial. If that character had a history of being a British spy, much in the vein of 007. Like, he took that concept and made it come to life. That's what it felt like to me. So you have got this former, I don't know if he worked for MI6 or whatever, but this agent for the British military who's got a long history. I mean, he's done work in Panama in the 90s when the U.S. invaded. Like, he's a badass. He's very skilled. He's the kind of person that, did you just get on that jet and fly away? Do you think you're safe? Well, no, you're not, because he can still get to you somehow, and he will. And the dude can shoot around corners and stuff. He's just kind of a badass. But as the human condition is wont to do, everybody gets older, right? I mean, the only alternative is, not as good as getting older, I feel like, especially for a guy who's constantly being shot at and really puts a lot of effort into not dying. So in current times, our man is rocking probably about, 61, 62. He's an older gentleman. He can't do the stuff that he used to do anymore. He's been retired from the spy game to a point, right? Like, so at some point, you're never really retired when you're that deep in. Like they've got him propped up. He's in charge of a charity and he does stuff here and there, and he's got a lot of medals from the Queen. But all of it's kind of a front to go do set up things in third world countries and just work on this espionage at a different level. Spends his nights and evenings at this very swank cigar and whiskey pub where people in nice suits come to end their days. It's very much a gentleman's place, if you think about that in the old sense. And he notices the world around him is changing. People are have a lot more bravado. They're rude. They don't respect the Kingsman's way, right? Like these aren't people who keep themselves nicely dressed and who have any type of like public decency or manners. They don't adhere to those things, and it bothers him. And as he's realizing that part of what has happened in the world is a direct result of his influence in the world as somebody who goes out and does these clandestine things for the country, and topples regimes and stuff like that, creates this environment. And he's having a hard time dealing with that. And this of course, and I think I said it earlier, but just in case I didn't, spoilers, right, for everything, because there's no real way we can talk about these books without getting into some of the meat and potatoes of it. These things all come to a head when he finds out that he has very late stage cancer. Like he has a tumor that is growing, and his days are numbered. He knows this. There's no real way of this is not a recoverable thing, and so he is going to take it upon himself to right some wrongs, and that's where the story's going, right? Like that's where he's gonna launch from there into and to really just vengeance, like recompense for his shitty life. And he's a guy who hasn't done good things, right? Like he throughout his history, you find out like he's got a license to kill. He's a murderer, but he did it for the government, so it's okay. He had an ex-wife that gorgeous and could have had an amazing life, but he spent his time cheating on her and being out in the world and not being a faithful man, and that he carries that with him. Apparently he's got a couple of kids floating out in the world that don't know he exists, or that he doesn't know them, and it really did seem like in this story when again, like I said, Millar hit a point to where he was like, oh, this feels like a weird place, I don't know where to go from here, let me grab something out of the hat. Oh, we'll launch in the future 30 years. Let's go to a park and watch a kid that might be mine. Like there's a subtext there that it really seemed like a hodgepodge of things. Wasn't necessarily hard to follow. You knew what was happening, but for me it was just like I see where you're going, but I don't know that I really want to go on this journey with you. And I don't mean that to be diminishing. If somebody liked the story at fun times, but for me it was just like. It's standard fare for Millar now. This is what I feel like he does. This
book felt like Mark Millar is Mark Millarist.
Yeah.
I mean, this felt like a cookie cutter Mark Millar story to me. Yeah, I was really disappointed with the lack of originality in this book, quite frankly. Yeah. The artwork is undeniable. The artwork's amazing. The character design is great.
It's unmistakably good.
I mean,
it's Matteo Scalera. He's wonderful.
But the narrative is just like, I don't know, man. It didn't do it for me. This felt it just felt like a color by numbers Mark Millar story, frankly. Yeah. I mean, couldn't have get more standard with him. And I didn't realize it was a $5 book either. Yeah.
That
kind of pisses me off. I mean, there's nothing other than, and I guess the only way to say that is I didn't care for it because of my own Mark Millar baggage.
And I think that's where I'm coming from.
Because if you approach this, you have no knowledge of him or his work, you very well could love this book. Mm-hmm. But if you've read quite a bit of his book, this just felt like, okay, well, this is just another one of those. Maybe he'll surprise you as the story goes forward and it'll go someplace. I mean, I'll give him that much credit. He's definitely written a lot of very noteworthy things that made very positive influences on the industry. Absolutely. I could name a bunch of them, and I still go back and read a bunch of his stuff. But this just felt very tired to me, frankly. So yeah, I'm not picking up any more of them.
No, and like I said, it may have been because I'm reading other James Bond stuff too, but it really felt like okay, let me come up with a spy story. Let me tell you how these things are influential. Oh, did you know that governments do things in the world that have effects and lasting people, and the agents that do these things live to regret it? I didn't know that. I mean, of course I knew that. Like it's just kind of
and
it didn't have flavor. Like I didn't feel any soul. Like the soul was in the art. The soul was in the art of this book, but I didn't feel any soul in the storytelling.
Well, I'll say, and I've said this before on the show. I've got a personal hang up with people using cancer as a plot device.
Yeah, I do too.
That sucks. Yeah. I'm sorry, that sucks. Those of us that have seen how that affects people's life, who use that for a fucking plot device, could have been anything. But here we are with another cancer plot device. That's just not cool for me.
I'm in general not a fan of recompense stories. So for me, when I look at a story, I really, if the story is about a character, like it doesn't have to be. A story can be just plot driven, and character takes a backseat to that, and that's fine if it really is plot driven. But when it's so character involved, then I look at a character arc. I look to see if there's character development being there and what the cause of that character development is there. I really don't like stories where the character development is driven by death. And I say that in terms of, okay, the only reason you're quote unquote growing as a person is because you're out of time.
Yeah.
That's not, it's coming up on Christmas. Everybody's reading, Charles Dickens, or at least reading the versions of that. Like,
if only everybody was reading.
I mean, if Scrooge was only changing because Scrooge was going to die like December 27th, I wouldn't give a shit about that story. Yeah. It matters because Scrooge had more time in real life to go live.
It's not exactly like he had a conscious awakening here.
This dude is doing nothing because he's morally driven to do it. He's doing something because honestly he feels slighted.
Yeah. Oh wait, something bad happened to me.
Exactly.
Oh wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He feels slighted by time, and there's even, and I realize, if you go back and read Mark Millar stories too, there's a lot of this in there, and I think it was less noticeable at the time, but there's some of this like White Knight, and I hate to sound like that guy, but like this thing where he's just constantly like, doing stuff to like, because he's the strong man, and like I'm going to pick this woman off the floor because I'm going to go do something in her honor. It's just kind of like that's a weird plot that like it's all too much for me. Like it's like. It would be less than that if it was only that.
Yeah.
But when you add up to everything, that really does feel like a color by number story.
Yeah.
It's a little much for me.
Yeah.
But like I said, Mateus, I loved the the use of the cigarettes throughout. Like that was fun because you don't see that a lot anymore.
No.
And really dated stories you do, but for this, he smokes a specific brand of cigarette, and he always says, the kings always smoke after making love, and because he's a king's man, and that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And just throughout this whole thing, he wants a nice scotch and cigarettes. So there's some of that cool, and I got to say the cover from Matteo Scalera is wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
It's absolutely beautiful. So there are elements to this that I chuckled at, that I found that I thought were funny. There were like little over-the-top moments of humor that really worked. Over-the-top humor doesn't always land with me, but the scene. So there's one thing where our hero gets in a prop plane, somehow catches a jet, gets inside the jet, and solves a problem inside the jet. And he's just in the back joking, just like, "What, did you think I wasn't here? I couldn't get you here?" Like it's this thing. Like this is. Millar knew it was absurd and is playing into that absurdity, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's an element of the story. I was like, okay, comic books, what this looks like, what this is, and you just pushed it to 11 on purpose, and you're aware of it. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, and I thought was fun. I definitely want to make a point to say that Mark Millar is very accomplished.
Oh, 1,000%.
And, talented writer. He's written some amazing things, again, that have made very positive influence on the industry, which is no small feat. So I'm not saying he can't do great things. I'm just saying this is just not for me.
Oh, for sure.
Again, and a lot of that, I think a lot of that is just personal baggage, frankly, which is, affects.
Well, I think it's that, but I genuinely feel, and I said this earlier, I genuinely feel that he is an IP farm at this point. Like, he is throwing spaghetti up against the wall, and there's not a lot of heart into it. I don't necessarily think he cares about creating anything new. Like, he's already made his impact in that sense, and maybe it's one of those things like you can't put toothpaste back in the tube, so let me just put as many things out there as I can.
Yeah.
What do you have a favorite Millar?
Oh man, I think it's going to have to be the Old Man Logan stuff.
Okay.
I was a late comer to that. When I heard what the Old Man Logan was, I was offended.
Uh-huh.
I was like, no, not my Wolverine. My Wolverine doesn't settle down with a family. So finally, I was talked into reading it and absolutely loved it.
It's phenomenal.
And the old man Logan character itself, I love. I'm always been a sucker for the trope of the old warrior straightening out the young people, because the experience of the old warrior, he knows exactly how to. He uses his brain, his experience, to take the young upstarts down a peg.
Yeah.
So I'm just a sucker for that. That's why I love old man Conan stories where these king, I love all the old man tropes. I dig if they're done, the way I like. So that one I like the most, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Millar's work on The Authority for me is some of my favorite.
Yeah.
That's peak Millar. And I know a lot of people would probably say Kick-Ass.
Yeah, definitely.
Stuff like I think that probably, or even that some people are still hugely big fans of Civil War,
of course,
and that made its mark and stuff too. But for me, it's that Authority book, like that was kind of peak Millar for me.
Yeah.
And you make an interesting point about the old man. And by the way, everybody should be aware that Matt uses the phrase whippersnapper regularly. That's
absolutely.
So, yeah. But that old man lining out the young tropes or young folks. Where was that trope in King of Spies? Like, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
And it may still come. So we don't know. We do know that he has there's an ongoing story here and that he's getting wrapped up and has got elements that he's still going to rely on. So that may be introduced in issue 2. We don't know.
Yeah.
But, I just, out of 5, I'd give it a 2.5.
Yeah.
It's nothing to throw out the window. It's just not what I was looking for, I guess, at the time.
Yeah.
So. And it doesn't sound like it was for you either. So
yeah.
I feel good in that assessment. Because sometimes when I read things and I'm just not like on it, and then you and Craig are just like, no, this was amazing. I'm like, I missed something.
Yeah.
This makes me feel bad. Like, what did I? Let me go back and revisit this and find out where I went wrong to where I turn at. I don't feel like I did that with this book though. It's just one of those things. So, well, speaking of one of those things, you got any final thoughts on the book before we?
No, I think I've said everything I want to say about it.
It does make me want to drink scotch and smoke cigars.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, not me.
Yeah. I would go for a bourbon, not a scotch, but yeah. Well, tell me about something else you read this week that I might not have.
So I pulled something out of the archives.
Oh.
Getting ready, in the spirit of, again, we're lining up today.
I didn't know this was happening.
Given that we're coming soon to the final Daniel Craig 007 movie, I pulled out the Dynamite James Bond 007 run that was started by Warren Ellis and Jason Masters. This came out in 2016.
Yeah.
I saw it on the shelf at the comic book shop at the time. Only picked it up because Warren Ellis was attached to it. I had never watched one 007 movie. Not that I avoided it for reasons. It was just one of those things I'd never tuned into for whatever reason, just never made it a point to watch any of them. So I read this and knocked my socks off. After reading the first arc, which is called Vargr, which is an old Norse word for evildoer, apparently, according to Warren Ellis.
I believe him.
Yeah, I do too. This is incredibly good.
Yeah.
And so I read this arc and immediately pulled up the Daniel Craig movies and started watching them. Love them. I was like, man, I should have been watching these the whole time. These are great freaking movies. The setting, the book opens up in Helsinki, and it's Bond chasing down a no good Nick and killing him.
A ne'er-do-well.
Yeah, a ne'er-do-well. What's interesting is he's doing so without a gun. James Bond is taking him down without a gun. Like, he's attacking him with a shovel in a construction site. The guy pulls a gun on him. James Bond does things like throws a bucket of chain full of chain link onto the guy and then cuts his fingers off with a shovel, takes the guy's gun. Before he kills him, he just lets him know, you randomly killed somebody a year ago that meant nothing to you, but he was 008. I'm 007, and pulls the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking great stuff, man. Oh, great stuff. So then we see, Bond back at MI6 has a great interaction with Moneypenny as he's walking into the office. And one thing that is great about this series is Bond is the butt of jokes all throughout this.
Oh, yeah.
Within MI6, they're tolerating at best.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's like, oh, here comes James Bond, our greatest asset. They're like, here's James Bond. What a pain in the ass.
like all this shit that he does that he's famous for, he's not supposed to do.
Yeah, he's not supposed to do these things. And this scene I just described, Q is straightening him out. Yeah. He's like, that was an unsanctioned activity you just did. And Bond's like, oh, well, I didn't use any 007 assets to do so. I didn't even use my 007 gun. So it's not a problem. And he's like, the guy's like, no, that's a problem. So just the quiet conversations that he has with M, it said M, but it's with M and Q are great. They take 007's gun from him because the English government has passed I guess you would call it, I would call it a law. I don't know what else to call it. That that government officials cannot be armed in public.
Yeah.
And 007's like, well, the 00 program's always been exempt. And they're like, well, not anymore. Hand over your gun. And it's really funny because, his Q is making fun of his Walther P99. And he's like, this is a lady's gun, and not for nice ladies either, 007. He's like, can I convince you to use something else other than this prostitute's weapon? I just, again, they're just, 007 gets no respect within the 00 program in this book. But there's a drug making the rounds in England, and that catches the 00 department's attention, and they want to nip this in the bud before it becomes a nationwide scourge. So 007 is going to be sent to America to look for the source of this supply. They're going to be working in coordination with Felix, his American counterpart Felix.
Yeah.
And so he's got to go to America without a gun, but he'll be supplied a gun there.
It's like you can get one here.
Yeah. And so he'll be supplied once he get there. He just can't transport one across the state, across the British nation with it. But the final page of this book, there is a man that's obviously being studied in some kind of lab. And the scientist is basically saying, okay, well, this man that's on this table, his name is Mr. Masters. Mr. Masters continues to exhibit chronic chemical anodenia. He cannot experience or process pleasure in any way, as he's coming off the table. And then they hand him a tablet with 007's profile on there. Said, you have to kill this man tomorrow, Mr. Masters. And he says, can I make it hurt, please? So that's where the issue wraps up. This man is coming after 007 as he's making his way to America to search for the source of this drug supply. Once he gets to America, how he gets a gun and then how he later needs to dispose of it is laugh out loud funny, because it gives you another one of these examples of how people in other countries view America and guns. It's hilarious. And I mean, it's so good.
It's both hilarious and sad at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's dark humor, humor with a dark edge to it. But I cannot recommend this enough. This first arc, 6 issues, Vargr, came out in 2016. You can pick them up, back issues. They're $1.
Yeah, you can find the trade. You can find the trade
cheap. Yeah. So he did this. Then is this first arc, 6 issues. Then he did another issue, same creative team, called Eidolon.
Yep.
Also very good. Also very good. And then after that's 12 issues, I mean, it was like a murderer's row of great writers and artists for James Bond. So I stayed on it for a long time. Then after this run with Warren Ellis and Jason Masters, Benjamin Piercy wrote the next arc.
Yep.
With Rafa Labosco on the art. I didn't know who Benjamin Piercy was at the time.
No.
This is before he started doing all his work at Marvel. And I read that and I'm like, man, who's this guy? This is amazing. Then Andy Diggle does an arc. Andy Diggle's an old 2000 AD. Not original, but he's from the 2000 AD stable. Started there as an editor with Luca. This name, Casa Languida, is probably not spelled correctly. Then there was a one-shot done by Kieran Gillen.
Yeah, I remember that one too.
And Antonio Fuso. So it was like they just went on a tear. Yeah. And all of these are just top-notch, man. I mean, I cannot recommend these enough. Even if you're, because I'm not a spy story guy.
Right.
That's why I never made it a point to watch the 007 movies, because I'm like, that's a spy story. I'm not really into those. That's fine. But these are outstanding. The dialogue and the fight scenes in these are beyond reproach.
Right. Well, and it's like Warren Ellis writes amazing fight scenes.
And this is another example of Warren Ellis letting the art tell the story. Yep. The opening
there's
book.
Quiet pages in this.
There's 4 pages. There's no words. He lets the art tell the story, and it's just, I cannot emphasize that enough, what that does for the book. Warren Ellis is anything but text heavy.
Yeah.
He does the most impact with the least amount of dialogue, and he does it. This is a picture perfect example of that. So if you're looking for something that's easy to read, but also hella compelling, this is a very easy recommendation because it's cheap, and it's just done incredibly well.
And I will co-sign all of that. So I had a very similar situation to you. I'd never collected 007 before, and then I found out Warren Ellis was writing it, so I jumped on for these 2 arcs. I read the Ben Percy arc. I think I jumped off the Diggle arc because, just like you said, I'm not that there was anything wrong with it. I don't have a long box full of 007 stuff in my house. I'm not I think I've seen one of the Daniel Craig 007 movies that had, I think it was the one that had Javier
Bardem.
Yeah, it had him in it.
That's the first one I watched.
Because it had Javier Bardem.
Because it had him in it, yeah.
I haven't seen any of the other ones. And I've seen most of, if not some of, I'm sure, of the Pierce Brosnan 007 films. Just going back, and every once in a while when I'm bored, I'll jump on Amazon and they'll have a Sean Connery or something in film, and I'll just check it out. But I'm just not a long time. Like, it's something I enjoy. It's kind of like cake. It's just something that cool. I can have a piece of cake. This is sweet. I like it. This is awesome. I'm gonna enjoy it. I don't seek it out though. Yeah. It's just there. I'll check it out. So I jumped on Vargr just for that, because Warren Ellis, and I stuck with it for a while.
Yeah.
Me too. And that's just like with the Himeros book that I was talking about earlier. If a good writer, if a writer or an artist gets on the book, that I'll follow them there. So if you take a writer like Rodney Barnes, who is writing 2 amazing stories that I absolutely love, and you put them, you saddle them with a character or something I'm not familiar with, something, there's a good chance I'm gonna follow them over.
Yeah. And
I'm glad I did with this particular James Bond book that you talked about, because Vargr, like, it was intense. Yeah. It was an intense story. It's not often like a comic book will get your blood pumping. You will have anxiety because of this book.
Yeah,
you will have adrenaline reading Warren Ellis.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it is.
It's great.
So no, I love that you brought this back and spoke about it, because it is Vargr is one of my favorite 007 stories that I've read. But again, I'm not well read in 007. Like, I haven't read any of the Fleming novels to speak of.
Well, and it was interesting to me that Warren Ellis wrote a 007 story, because Warren Ellis is such a subversive writer.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Warren Ellis is writing a that just jumped out at me. I was like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's not one to glorify king and country or queen.
Yeah,
country,
yeah.
And he doesn't.
Yeah, no.
And I think that's a perfect vehicle. Man, like, the characters from The Authority that he wrote, Manchester Black, I think is his name. Like, those guys that he just fits in there, and just, those are punk rock-esque, really, like, gritty street people who have bad views of, like, government in general, but particularly from like the British or Scottish and Irish kind of area of the world. It's funny to see him work those isms into that. Yeah. And with a character like Bond, who can see behind the curtain, who he knows how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Yeah.
And who can be a very callous person, I think, at times.
Yeah.
And as he understands that everything is fool's gold. Like that, this polish only goes surface deep.
Yeah.
It gives him a good space to write those characters.
Yeah.
So, I picked up something this week that I'm willing to bet you didn't read.
I did not.
I didn't pick it up this week. I picked it up a few weeks ago. And it's from Marvel. I grabbed it because there are a line of Marvel books on the shelf right now that all have this kind of moniker on them called Darkhold.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grabbed the main book, because they're all like, Blade Darkhold, this Darkhold, that Darkhold. Well, I grabbed the main book just to kind of see what was going on. Just wanted to flip through it and check out some of the art. And I opened up a page, and it had my girl Scarlet Witch hanging out on the page. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll take this home and read it. I'm a mark for the character. Yeah, that's it. If I open up your book and it's got the Hulk in it, probably taking it home. If I open it up and it's got Scarlet Witch in it, probably taking it home. Namor's, Hercules. That's just Batwoman over at DC. That's just what I'll do. I'm a mark for those characters. So I took this home, and this is an interesting story. So it is written by Steve Orlando, who I'm a fan of. I enjoy Steve Orlando's work. I've read him a lot of time. I've read a lot of his work. I'm always willing to give him a chance. Sometimes he's hit or miss, right? Like he's not a sure thing, but he's a good writer. Sion Tormey did the art on this book. Jesus Abertoff did the colors, and Clayton Cowles did the letters, with a cover by the awesome Greg Smallwood. And this is Darkhold Alpha. So I wanted to see what was happening with this. I do try to keep my finger on the pulse of Marvel when it comes to most things, just to see what's happening. Book opens up with this giant construction site, but you can very much tell it's subterranean. Like, this is not anything happening on a surface level. Like, this is deep beneath the pits of the earth. And like Doombots and Machine Man bots are like digging down here. They're all working, and they're trying to find something. And unsurprisingly, they find what they are looking for. And what they're looking for is this skin-covered, very much derivative of the Necronomicon book called The Darkhold. And this is the book that was created to bind the being. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Scython. It's basically Marvel's version of Cthulhu. Scython, Cyclon, I have no idea, but it's basically him. It's Marvel's version of Cthulhu. A very powerful being, the type of creature that haunts the dreams of Doctor Strange and the Scarlet Witch and all these people who dabble in magic and mysticism. Doesn't haunt the dreams of Doctor Doom, because no one haunts the dreams of Doom. Doom is the haunt. And it's actually Doom who's looking for these things. That's why the Doombots are there. They're trying to uncover it. And he's doing this purposefully because any normal mortal person who looks at the pages of the Darkhold goes insane, right? It drives them crazy. It's Lovecraftian, very much derivative from that. That's kind of the world that you're sitting in. And the Doombots find it, and Doom is able to read some of these pages through the eyes of his Doombot, giving him some power. But what this does is it builds a bridge between the prison that Scython has been trapped in another dimension, and the Earth that he's constantly trying to invade, kind of like Dormammu in that sense. This taps into an old enemy of his, my girl and yours, everybody's favorite, the witchiest, bitchiest of them all, Scarlet Witch. Wanda has a nightmare about the coming of Scython, him wrecking the world. I mean, and you get this page where you just see Scython looming over New York City, all of these beasts and demons just wrecking all of your favorite Marvel heroes. The Hulk is just trapped underneath these nasties. And you see Captain America just bloodied, and the Richards kids are there, and they're older in the stream. And you see Valeria come running, and she's shielding herself with her powers, and she's trying to find Franklin, because Franklin's the only one who can stop this in this nightmare that Wanda's having. Except the Darkhold has infested Franklin, and he just Franklin's arguably the most powerful being in Marvel, and now he is a puppet of Scython in this dream. And Wanda wakes up very unsettled, not happy, like she knows that something's wrong, and she starts reaching out, and eventually what she finds is she's able to use her magic to track the Tether, which is the Darkhold, this book that Scython has to a world. It tracks them back to this building site, and Doom now has his own herald, kind of like Galactus. Doom has this herald named Victorious, and she's this. If Doom had a right hand, Dr. Doom had a right hand, I guess it would be her. She kind of travels around and does his bidding and makes sure that things are taken care of for him. She's his executive assistant, so to speak, in Magic and Evil, and just kind of what they want. So Wanda shows up and just starts a fight. Like, she's there like, what have you done? You guys, you majorly fucked up. Doom, your ego has pushed too far this time. You have doomed the world. And so her and Doom kind of have this moment. Of course, you got to remember, her and Doom was knocking boots back in the day. Like, her and Doom have a relationship history. If you ever haven't read The Children's Crusade, go check that out. It's an amazing story. And so they have this relationship, and on some level, Doom still respects her, and at least treats her at arm's length. And so as they talk, and they have to do the whole thing where they fight first and then talk, which is kind of annoying. They start realizing Doom has had some of these visions too, and yeah, he won't admit that he made a mistake because he's Doom, and Doom does not make mistakes. But he will admit that he needs to go into Scython's dimension and go ahead and wreck shop and stop this, because he did build the bridge. But as far as gatekeepers go, he's a pretty damn good one, and he doesn't need anybody's help. Except that what happens is Doom does go to this dimension and gets his head rocked by Scython a little bit. As they are reading, as he goes into the dimension, Wanda and Doom's herald interpret some of the pages from the Darkhold through the Doom bots, because like Doom's gone into the dimension. They don't know if he's coming back, so they're trying to figure out a backup plan, right? Inside this book, inside the Darkhold, there is a prophecy, a fable about the 5 Darkhold defenders, these beings from the past who created a team that were able to push back against Scython. And they're looking for the reiterations of that, I guess people to hold those totems, try to figure out how to get them. And they, Wanda comes up with a list of people that she thinks fits in these, because you've got the dreamer, the hunter, the artist, the stoic, and the fool. So she does a plug and play into finding out who these versions of these people are in the Marvel Universe. You have Iron Man, he's the dreamer, he's the futurist, he's the guy who dreams stuff into being. Blade, he's the hunter, so he pops in. You have Wasp, Janet Van Dyne, who is she's an artist. She's a clothing designer. You have the Stoic, who is Black Bolt, who I haven't seen in Marvel Comics in a minute. I don't know what they've been up to.
There's a Black Bolt book going on.
Is there? Yeah. I haven't checked it out, so I didn't know that was happening. But I haven't seen him around. I didn't know the Inhumans were doing anything other than Kamala Khan. And then the Fool, of course, is Spider-Man. And like, she has this bright idea of bringing them all together as the plan B in case Doom doesn't make it back, in case Scython does invade. And as plans are wont to do in the Marvel Universe, they go awry. And Doom does make it back. So you didn't miss the end of Doom. Don't worry.
He's better.
But he is in a foul mood when he comes back. He is not happy. It was fine. Tormy, as far as the art goes, the art is great. It got really 90s-ish at the end in ways that I didn't like. And I think that was because it wasn't that way throughout most of the book.
Yeah.
It was kind of Marvel House style, with a flair, obviously. But then the last pages, something happens with the Darkhold defenders that changes the way they look, and that's all I'll say. And it gets very like Johnson, like Strowman, very 90s. I'll slide this over to you so you can see it. But there were also moments in this book where like the story that was happening didn't particularly match up with the art as the way it was depicted. So there's a scene in this where Doom's executive assistant, which is what I'm going to call her now, and Wanda are fighting, but the conversation is a very quiet conversation. like they're squaring off, but they shouldn't be. Like, it doesn't match what's happening as far as the words go. So the art and there was a miscommunication there, and there were a couple moments like that in this book. I think Steve Orlando has a great voice for Wanda. And I'm very picky about people with the way they write Wanda. I don't necessarily think he has as good of a voice for Doctor Doom. And Doctor Doom's a hard character to write.
Man, people miss the mark with Doctor Doom. It seems like that happens way more often than not.
It was almost there. He's got a chainsaw and he needs to be a scalpel. Like he's almost there. Like he's in the ballpark of where he needs to be with the voice. Not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But I think as a writer, Steve Orlando's a young writer. I think he can get there. You know, and I think he's flexing some muscles in this book, and I'm really interested to see what they do. All in all, I will probably check out. I think this is the kickstart of a series of one-shots that this Darkhold story is going to be told in. I'm gonna have to, I guess, go pick up the rest of them because Wanda's in them. I'm fighting my
that was a big question mark.
Yeah, the completionist in me and the Wanda mark in me is fighting because I really don't necessarily want. Based on the last page, I'm not driven to really want to understand what's happening in the rest of the story, and I know that's not a ringing endorsement to people to go pick it up.
No,
but you might there are people who just the more absurd people who are in love with the 90s who like that quote unquote extreme style who really might dig this. People who want to see what Blade does and stuff. That it might be for them. I'll probably end up grabbing some of these just to see what's happening with them. Because Wanda's in there, and I do like Blade, so I'm curious to see what's going on with them.
Yeah.
I may wait because what they're doing is there's a series of one-shots. You have Darkhold Iron Man, Darkhold Blade, Darkhold Wasp, Darkhold Black Bolt, Darkhold Spider-Man, and then Darkhold Omega. This book was Darkhold Alpha.
Yeah.
I may just pick up Darkhold Omega to kind of bookend it to see what's happening there, just to finish off. Because I kind of want to see what happens.
Yeah.
Especially want to see more Wanda and more Doom team up. I like those characters. Big fan of the Children's Crusade. Big fan of that relationship. Not that relationship. Big fan of that story that was told about their relationship because that relationship was very kind of one-sided.
Yeah.
And Wanda was not in a happy place.
Mm-hmm.
Some consent issues maybe at the time, but it's nice. It's neat seeing those people together again. Those two characters. Just from the aesthetic visual standpoint alone, the red and the greens, the way they mash together on the page, it's beautiful, especially when in the right hands. And for the most part, like I said, my only complaint with the book was that it was where the plot and the visual representation didn't seem to line up. The art in and of itself is beautiful. It's fine. It's wonderful. I really enjoyed it. So I would own a page from this if I could.
Yeah.
So that's the Darkhold Alpha. Go pick it up. And I think I'll be surprised if it doesn't pull in Doctor Strange or something at some point, or have some type of bridge over to the book that Scotty Young is doing right now.
Strange Academy.
Yeah, Strange Academy. Because of just how much magic plays into this. And
Mm-hmm.
they did it a little bit with the last Dormammu story that the Avengers, that was in the Avengers and in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that happening here. So I'll be curious to see if they do anything with that. So I am going to pick up, I think, Darkhold, what was it? Delta?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Charlie.
Omega. Yeah.
Yeah.
Darkhold Beta.
Yeah.
Omicron.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's my book for the week.
Nice.
More witch is a good thing. So, well, you got anything else you want to talk about while we're still here?
Just what I recommend next week.
Well, why don't you tell me about that?
So this is a one shot, and I'm gonna say that this is probably gonna lead to more than one. This one shot, I think there's going to be a follow up to this. I don't think this is a bold prediction.
Think it's a foot in the door?
I don't think this is a bold prediction. This is from Aftershock from Frank Thierry and Joe Yzma.
Okay.
So this is called Mother F Goose 1. All right.
I saw this.
So it's the three little pigs are gluttonous casino owners. Little Miss Muffet is a hard-nosed cop with arachnophobia. The three blind mice are ocularly impaired assassins. Puss in Boots is a feline-faced scumbag. Welcome to Mother F Goose, where your favorite fairy tales are turned into twisted characters right out of a Tarantino movie. So, yeah, I'm picking that up. I want to check this out.
Have you read Fables?
Not consistently.
You need to remedy that.
Yeah, I've been told that many times. Yeah,
you need to read Fables.
Yeah,
I can't.
The something caught my attention. I don't remember where I read this, but I think it was Frank Thierry. Don't quote me that. I don't think I'm wrong, but I think I saw this on Twitter where he said The Godfather is gangster fantasy. Goodfellas is gangster reality. Which I've always said that. So when I saw it, I was like, bing, this guy, that got my attention.
Yeah, that guy gets it.
And then that quote was in relation to this book. So that's what really coming across that little blurb on Twitter is really what got me to, okay, what's this guy doing? Because I like that.
I mean, it's an easy sell for me.
Yeah.
I mean, the creative team alone is an easy sell for me, but just the concept, I love anthropomorphic stuff, and also I'm a big fan of Fables. So I'll be grabbing that too. We can, if we want, maybe we make that our book of the week.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
Yeah, because I'd be very curious. I think we will both just laugh heartily.
I hope so. Yeah,
that's the goal. So I'm going to tell folks to pick up a number 2, and usually we do number 1s on these. I feel like I've been doing that lately, more and more. Nita Hawes Nightmare Blog number 2 comes out this next week. Now, I said at the beginning of the show, I started off by telling you how much I loved Rodney Barnes, another Rodney Barnes book. He is doing this with his. Actually, this is not with Jason Sean Alexander, who did the first issue of the book and who was his creative partner on Philadelphia. This is with an artist called Welby, who I'm not necessarily familiar with, but Luis NCT does some stuff on this, and I think Jason Sean Alexander did the cover. So this is a spinoff from Philadelphia, except it doesn't deal with vampires; it deals with demons. Rodney Barnes knows how to work a metaphor like nobody's business, and so he does that in Philadelphia all over the place. He's going to do that here too. Different story, and I think I spoke about the first issue on the show. So reporter X of the cop from Philadelphia. So fun times, and I am excited about it. I'm all in on basically anything Rodney Barnes does. So, and of course that was from Image Comics.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and then just to wrap up the show, not a comic book thing. I started watching a new TV show, and I'm curious if you've seen it or not. It's on HBO Max. It's called Succession.
No, but boy, has that show got a lot of buzz.
Yeah,
Holy smoke!
I just started watching it. I think that you would like it.
Man, the reason I have not watched. Of course, I don't watch any. I just do not watch stuff. But that show in particular, what does not compel me to watch it is I fucking hate watching dramatic shows about ultra rich people. I'm so sick of the lifestyle of the ultra rich and that shit being glorified.
Oh, it's not glorified.
Well, and I know it's all about dysfunction and all that, but
it's not even that. This show shows you that these are the most despicable human beings in the world.
Yeah, and that's and I understand that. And that is just so that's why I haven't watched it. It's baggage, not because I don't think it's
also very dry comedy. Like it's actually hilarious, but it's not like
Brian Cox being in it almost convinced me.
Yeah.
I love Brian Cox. And that almost convinced me, but I've yet to,
It's taken me 3 weeks to watch 3 episodes of it.
Yeah. My girlfriend even has mentioned it before, and I'm just like, I'm just fighting it.
I've really enjoyed it. So, and hopefully if you ever get a chance, the first episode, like I said, rose-colored glasses were not worn on this show, and it's purposely done. So, but we hope you have checked it out, or hope you have enjoyed us listening to us talk about these comics or the television shows that we watch, because that's what we do it for, kind of. We also do it because we just enjoy each other's company. If you want more of this, or you want to come tell us what you're reading, or what you're watching, or what games you're playing, or what you want on your Christmas list, or your what gifts you got for Hanukkah, or anything like that, you can do all of that by reaching out to us on the various forms of social media, which we monitor and sometimes we involve ourselves in. You can check us out on the Facebook. We're there. We're on the Instagram and Twitter. We're at SFG Podcast on those. We also have a little email address that you can fire off a little bit of writing to if you want to. Maybe you have a question. Maybe you have a project. Maybe you have something. Send us an email at southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. And we will get back to you in an untimely fashion.
Untimely is guaranteed.
Yeah, guaranteed. You can set your clock by that. So, but other than that, look, have a great week. The holidays are coming up. Hope everybody is doing well. found out yesterday my brother and his wife are expecting a little girl, so good news is rolling in, and I'm excited about that. And just have a great week. We'll see you next time, and in the meantime, go forth and love some comics.
Phrase of the day: poetic as fuck.
Yeah. Is it the phrase of the day? There was like 3 phrases of the day that could have.
Nothing's gonna top poetic as fuck.
I got to go back and listen to this and figure out what you said at the beginning of it. That's going to be the title of this episode, because that shit was funny.